the real reason I think so many people are out on this team, or at least aren't willing to let themselves be open to be hurt again, is because the lineup is largely unchanged. Max Kepler was the biggest signing, if you want to put biggest in quotes. It's a team that has been horrific at situational hitting. It's a lineup that has gone cold multiple postseasons in a row, has certainly cost them a World Series, has certainly cost them the ability to go farther into the playoffs. You mentioned at one point on the show that Bryce Harper's halfway through a contract. He's 32. Schwarber's 32. JT Realmuto's 34. I'm not trying to say that these guys are done and that their primes are over, but, I mean, you're getting pretty damn close to those peak years being at or now past. How do you try to sell people on the idea that this is going to be different, because it is largely unchanged as a lineup?
So I think we kind of get caught up a little bit in them going cold for 2 games against Arizona in 23 and for 3 games against the Mets in 24.
It's kind of important, though.
Well, no,
timing kind of matters.
Timing is everything, right?
Cold for 3 games in the playoffs, you're out of the fucking playoffs. So yeah,
yes,
people are going to be upset about
right.
That
But yeah, I get it, right? I get it. But if you look at everything in totality, it's still a really good offense, like overall. And yeah, I get it. They didn't make, and I've said already, I don't think Kepler. And look, Kepler might hit 30 home runs this year. He's done it in the past. Like, he could hit 30 home runs for the Phillies this year, and they'll say, see, that was a pretty good signing. But the reality is that I think that they needed something different. Where I think that the Phillies are banging their head against the wall is with Trey Turner. I think that they're trying to turn him into something he's not. They want him to be an on-base guy, and he's just not an on-base guy. He's a good hitter who's going to hit 290 for you. He's going to hit you 25 home runs. He can run the bases really well, right? That doesn't necessarily mean let's put him at the top of an order and turn him into a 360, 365 on-base guy. He's not going to do that. He's not going to take walks. He's going to swing out of his shoes. He's going to swing at bad pitches. So they're trying to make him more of a table setter, and he's not that player. And I think that's a thing where when you look for frustrations with the Phillies, it should be targeted there more than anywhere else, because I think Bryson Stott's going to have a bounce-back year. I really do. That's the guy that I'm going to die on a hill with this year. I think it's going to be much better than he was.
A-OK?
I think he will be A-OK. I think he'll be much better than he was last season. I firmly believe, after talking to some people in the organization quietly, that elbow, that nerve issue in his elbow was a significant barrier for him last year. But that he's now 100% healthy with that, and it's going to be a lot like the 23 version of Bryson Stott, who was close to being an all-star than we saw in 24. So I think that there's going to be improvement there. Harper needs to be more of an MVP guy. He's great. He's a great player, 900 OPS guy, but he needs to get back to being more of an MVP caliber type player. There was a poll done, I think, by The Athletic, where they said, who's gonna be in the MVP race this year, whatever. And I think they came up with like 6 or 7 names in the National League, and Bryce Harper did not get one vote. Right? So that needs to fuel him a little bit. That you're still a great player, but you're not considered one of the superstars in the National League anymore for some reason. So that should fuel him. So I think you need more out of those 2 guys. They're your 2 biggest players, right? They're who you're paying the most money to. You need more out of them, and then you got to hope with the outfield, because my hot take, I don't know if you heard it at the end of Fighting Words.
To the entire episode.
Yeah, at the end of Fighting Words, my hot take is the Phillies' entire outfield in 2026 will be different than the outfield is in 2025. All 3 positions will be different. So that's where your frustration should be. It's like, what can this outfield do for you, and how much of a superstar can Harper be, and can Turner live up to his contract? Those are your frustrations. Not, oh, the whole lineup goes cold. It's not that. It's really not that, because this lineup does put up numbers. They do drive in runs, right? They do compare them to every team in baseball. They're top 5, top 7 in every major offensive statistical category, right? I mean, it really is. So we get aggravated with it because everybody watches the Phillies and doesn't watch the other 29 teams in the sport. If you sit around and if you're a nut job like me and you go to a Phillies game and then come home and watch, another West Coast game as soon as you get home and want to watch 2 other teams play, like you start to recognize, for all the complaining you do about the Phillies, they're still far and away better than a lot of other teams in the sport offensively, right? As frustrating as they are. So it really comes down to that. Like you got to look at where Harper's good, but he hasn't been superstar. Turner's good, but he hasn't been his contract. The outfield needs to be better. That's the 3 things I look at in this lineup that say, if you can get those 3 things going, and when I say the outfield needs to be better, they don't need to be all-stars. Yeah. They just need to be consistent. Those 3 outfielders, Castellanos, Marsh, and Kepler, which is what it's going to be primarily this year, those 3 guys need to be consistent. If you get inconsistency from those 3 guys, that's not going to help.